I'm Tim Ochu, and this is Tech China, China Daily's new technology column. We're here today at the 2015 Global Sources Mobile Electronics Fair. Tech China will be here every day as we dive into the latest in wearables, drones, and of course all things smartphones. Today we'll be kicking off our inaugural broadcast to talk about startups. This of course being a largely B2B platform. Today I'm joined with Brinc team leader Paul Lee, whose firm shepherds startups from ideation to distribution, and Mike Bellamy.
Thanks.
Founder of PassageMaker Sourcing Solutions and chairman of the China Sourcing Information Center, a nonprofit set up to educate, develop, and advance the China sourcing profession.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me, guys. First question, big or small, does size matter when it comes to startups and their backing?
Yeah. You want to start?
Yeah, sure. I think when you say big or small, I assume you mean team sizes.
Well, let's talk about team sizes and funding. First of all, how big should your team be? And in terms of funding, do you go after the big fish like the VCs, the venture capitals, or do you try things like a Kickstarter?
Right, I think for both, in my case anyway, I opt for small and quality. So the team size, obviously, you know, when you have the right people with the right passion and the right knowledge, I don't really think, to start things, especially with these days, with cloud computing, with 3D printing, with people working off locations and all the tools available to them, I don't think you need to be having a big startup, at least to get to the prototype stage. So small team, but intimate and passionate is key. For funding, I actually would advocate, you know, being, again, we are in the new brave age of, I guess, the next generation of startups. Crowdfunding, in this case, can actually hopefully tie you through the first round of prototyping and then even commercialization. And after that, then we would recommend you to go to VC because you would have a solid business case, well, you know, or maybe you'll be told to pivot because the crowdfunding fails, which is a good thing. You fail early. Fail early, fail often. One of the first lessons I learned from real world. So yeah, I would opt for small when for my own startups.
But that also brings challenges. My background's in manufacturing, so I'm often brought in as an investor on a new idea or perhaps just as an advisor to help arrange the supply chain. And you're absolutely right, from the management and taking an idea, seeing if it works, small and fast is good. The problem is then when you need to go to China or anywhere in manufacturing, it's really a volume game. So your headaches are decreased the larger your buying power is. You know, you go to a supplier and say, we want to open up some new tooling.
Right.
Okay, that's a fixed price regardless if you buy 1 million parts or one. And startups generally are starting small. So that's the challenge that a lot of entrepreneurs and startups kind of skip over, is that to actually get this product made in China in particular is going to be a challenge when you're small, your technology is new, the suppliers aren't quite sure what's involved, a lot of hand-holding, and either you outsource that to somebody or you get your own team to have the ability to communicate with the suppliers, but it's a cost that needs to be built in that a lot of startups forget about.
Right. Okay. So I mean, between the two of you, your experience kind of touches every spot along the supply chain. Yeah. Are there any sort of hard and fast rules in terms of showing your best side to investors or end customers or manufacturers?
Yeah.
I guess I'll go first.
Sure.
I think to me, what Mike just mentioned is also very, very, very valid, and that is also where the new age of crowdfunding, 3D printing, and all that stuff comes to play. I think the best side is shown when you can show credibility. Doesn't mean you have to have a product that has sold millions, but at least you have to have the core team that knows what you're talking about. You have a functional prototype that hopefully may have been 3D printed with circuit boards and all that stuff, functional at least, and being reviewed and published by someone in the industry. And crowdfunding, you appeal to these people with the prototype and with the plea that if we get this minimal amount, we can go to factories and make a batch. If the crowdfunding is successful by a large margin, especially, the factories, like Mike said, usually they don't care about small quantities. But if you blow through your goals and even though ultimately crowdfunding usually is a couple of thousand units, which is not the usual minimum order quantity for factories, but they can see that there's potential, it is new in the market, and you prove that people want it because you did it on crowdfunding. And traditional manufacturers won't touch this because this seems too small. So there's a case to be made for the factories to say, okay, I'll jump in with you on this one. maybe work something out. Because factories also look for new things. They are currently very over-reliant, as I'm told, on a couple companies. If one of them decides to shift or they sneeze, then it's layoffs at factories. So they also want to diversify.
Well, I could answer the original question. Maybe I switch hats and go into my investor mode, because sometimes I put my own capital into these startups, and what I look for is, of course, good people. You want, everybody knows that. That's not a China thing. Do you want to do business with these people? That I look, and you raise this, is the supply chain ready to go? If we dump all this money in and we start selling on Amazon, or we get into the big box retailers, you get one shot, and you don't want to say, oh, sorry, can you delay that promotional plan? And no, because you'll never get a business with them again. The other thing that I always ask about is intellectual property, because everybody, look at the show floor here. The products that were hot 6 months ago are really hot now. It seems like everybody's got a power pack or a wearable, whereas 12 months ago there were only a few suppliers here. So if you're going to compete in those markets, you got to have some type of barrier to entry to your competitors who are probably have deeper pockets and maybe even more connections in the marketplace to penetrate. And for me, intellectual property is most important, because if you own it, then you've at least got a fighting chance to keep the wolves at bay.
I see. Insightful. Okay, well, earlier today, we spent some time interviewing exhibitors at the expo. Let's see who they are and what kind of challenges they're facing operating in Hong Kong and China.
Well, we are IG Communications, IGC, and we're out of South Korea, and we're basically are setting up a wireless charger. It's something really cool and innovative. It's a magnetic-based charging system, and there's nothing else like it out there in the field. We're a startup, and we're really trying to break into an international market. I think it's really more about trying to get in and really develop a localized product. The market in Korea is a lot more kind of singular, a lot more unified than it is in China. But I think that what we're really trying to do is to create kind of a localized experience that we can bring into China. Something that will really fit in well with the market here.
I'm Ricky Leung, I'm CEO of Hong, and we mainly sell 3D printers, and we also do 3D printing education. We are now operating for about 2 years now, and being a startup is of course difficult no matter where you are. The difficult part is, I guess, land property problems, because as a startup we always need places to work, and the rents in Hong Kong is kind of high, and especially for us, we do hardwares, so we can't just sit at home doing softwares, and we always need places. And so I think the main problem is Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, it's high rents, and as a hardware startup, we also need factories to do mass productions. And in Hong Kong, there's really no factories, so we have to, luckily although in Hong Kong there's no factories, luckily we are still in Hong Kong, so it's kind of easy to access factories from China, and so we can source our mass production sourced in China. So I guess, yeah, there are pros and cons like that.
And we're back. So Paul and Mike, both of you are based in the Pearl River Delta region. I was wondering if you guys can share with us what kind of unique features startups, or what kind of unique, what kind of landscape do startups in China operate in? And how does it differ than, say, startups in the US and in Europe or Japan, South Korea?
Sure.
Well, I'll go again. So
okay.
I'll follow that customary. So I actually studied in the US, and my first 15 years worth of career was in Silicon Valley in the US. So I have a chance to get a taste of both startups in Silicon Valley and in the Pearl Delta region. I think, and you'll hear me talk about this again and again, hope you don't get bored, but the new age of digital marketing, crowdfunding, has turned things upside down, and it has created a whole ecosystem that benefits the Pearl region, because the crowdfunding and the digital marketing side of things allow you to do things backwards. What I mean is this: just 10 years ago, if I had an idea with Mike and hey, let's make a drone, right? So we would have to raise our money from Mike probably, and manufacture it, and then we pay the consignment fees, we do the deals, we do TV commercials, and we launch. And we may or may not fail. If we fail, we fail. If we succeed, there's not even a way to figure out what could work better. For example, with a TV commercial featuring Tom Cruise versus Brad Pitt, be better? 30 seconds, 15 seconds, there's lots of things. So digital marketing kind of solved that, and you can now A/B test on Facebook and do the ads, and until you have very good response, you don't even go live. Maybe you can never tweak it beyond a certain success rate, and you just don't go to live because this is a bad business idea. You know right away. If you can tweak it over a month and you have like pretty good hit rate, then you go to crowdfunding, and then you raise money, and then you produce. And the difference between the pro-felder region is that you can do all that here as well. But when you successfully raise $1 million, I've seen time and time again, I'm sure Mike can give you more details, but in the US there will be very, very qualified teams with like working functional prototypes that say, hey, we raised $1 million, $10 million, let's call China tomorrow. How hard can that be to manufacture this? Well, the answer is very hard. And I've seen teams and companies that basically just get, it needs a lot of back and forth. You really need teams on the ground. So startups being here has this immense advantage that you can actually, after crowdfunding, you can bring product to life. And I think Mike actually specializes in that.
Yeah, I can add a few comments to that. So everybody realizes, you're closer to the manufacturing action, and maybe on the Silicon Valley side, you're closer to the money. But in terms of manufacturing, there are obvious advantages of the Pro River Delta. Other kind of secondary or often overlooked advantages, startups in America or Hong Kong or Shenzhen are always on a shoestring budget. But your budget goes a lot further in China, more than just, I'm not talking about opening tools and maybe getting prototypes done, but to do things right, you're going to want to have contracts in place. You're going to need legal support. You're going to need engineering. There's logistics. There's banking. All those things are available. Testing, prototyping, compliance. Those can be very expensive. In New York, just to get a lawyer to review a contract, now you're out $2,000. My lawyer is very good, speaks English, is a Chinese lawyer, and $400 for a very nice contract that works. I'm talking about supplier contracts and non-competes, that kind of stuff. So it's not just about where's production low cost, but there's now an infrastructure in the Pro River Delta that wasn't here even as recent as 5 years ago. Now it's not only when we say let's find an engineering firm to maybe do our CAD files or whatever in China, that engineering firm might be owned by an Australian who has a French tech guy and then some local staff. So it's become very international, this little part of China. It's when we're dealing with service providers, whether it's a lawyer or whatever in China, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're Chinese. It's just that they're based here.
I mean, that dovetails into my next question, which is about the startups into supply chain. I mean, have there been any major differences within the last 5-10 years? I think you've just touched on that. There's been a lot of internalization, a lot of foreign talent coming in. The ecosystem has been fleshed out, as it were, to support services. What else has changed? What else should startups know?
Time to market. Look at the trade show. The products that are hot now will be totally different. So the 15 suppliers in the aisle providing wearables, maybe only 2 or 3 are going to be here 6 months from now. Things change that fast. So as an entrepreneur, you think, oh, I've got a great supplier in place, or let's keep them in our pocket. Then in 6 months from now, when we have the funding, we'll go back there and we'll turn on let it flow. And then that supplier has now moved on to another product. So one of the things that has changed is how fast the supply chain can change on you while you're getting that funding and getting ready to go to market. That's one thing that keeps me awake at night.
Yeah, I wouldn't know because this is my first one, but I would think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, well, I think this is almost all the time we have. Is there any sort of last words you have for any sort of potential startups or anybody looking to get into the game?
I would say, I keep saying, we make sure you have the mentality, the personality for taking up a lot of failing and always seeing things the glass 1/10 full, because you will run into walls, and you have to find ways to get through it.
Be an optimist and be Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, and on the flip side, if you know you're not, it's perfectly okay to not do startups. Corporate jobs are very viable and very true, right?
Enough topic.
Yeah. Well, if the audience takes two things away from my points today, I want them to look at the project in a holistic fashion. So many, especially I'm American, so many Americans will focus on getting to market, getting that funding, getting a pledge from a big buyer to purchase 10,000 units, and then say, now how do I get that made? And that's when the headaches start. So think about your whole supply chain, from the manufacturer all the way to delivery, as you're preparing your budgets and your plans. The other thing is, everybody's got a good idea, and there's always going to be some competitor with more money in their pocket and better connections. So if you want to hold on to that idea and be the guy that makes money from it, you got to have some IP. If you're just doing another Me Too product and you think, oh, I can innovate and get to the market faster, you might win for a little while, but somebody else is going to really, eat your lunch eventually. So own that IP, register it in China, register it in America, register it wherever you're going to sell it in the world, and that'll give you some protection.
Insightful. Okay, well that's all for today, folks. Join us tomorrow, Tuesday and Wednesday, same time, same channel. If you have any suggestions or comments, do leave a comment. And I'm Timochu. Thanks for watching. This is Tech China.